In this video, we're going to talk about who is our most important player. An interesting conversation because oftentimes the most important player is not the same as your best player. And I think that is the case for the Carlton Football Club. At the end of the video, I'll get you all to write your top 5 most important players heading into season 2023. Now, obviously, at the time of filming this, there are certain circumstances that might change between now and the start of the 2023 AFL season. So if need be, we might do this video again. But I always like this discussion because I think everybody's top 5 or top 3 will be different. And that's the beauty of it. I believe Jacob Weitering is our most important player. I've had a look. I don't think he's our best player, but I think he's our most important player. I think going back over the years, whenever he hasn't played, I feel like we miss him more than most. I don't believe we've had a real replacement for him. And if we even go back 12 months, knowing Weitering was in the side, we were yet to see the emergence of Lewis Young. So we were a little unsure how it was going to work once Liam Jones left the club and once the backline was sort of left to Jacob Weitering to really help lead. Obviously, at the time as well last year, Sam Docherty, we just weren't sure how much we were going to be able to expect of him. Now, obviously, Doc goes on to play 22 games, and that's great. But I really do think Jacob Weitering is our most important player. He's obviously the anchor down back there. He sees the entire ground ahead of him, communicates instructions based on what he sees. And I think the defensive mechanism is built around him, or it's built with him as the core piece there. Also, we saw when he missed in season 2022 how much that affected us. I think also when he did come back and he was struggling with that sore knee, I think it was tendonitis or tendinopathy or something of the like. He just wasn't anywhere near the Jacob Weitering that we need him to be. And I think the best Carlton team has to have a fit and firing Jacob Weitering in it for us to be a chance at anything remotely successful in 2023. So Jacob Weitering is my number 1 most important player heading into season 2023. My next one is Mark Pittonet. And I don't know if this is felt by other people, but I think when you look at our situation going into the season right now, the established ruckman who I can look at on the list and say, okay, who are our guys that we can trust going into the season? I think Pitto is obviously there. Tom De Koning is obviously there, really developing. I'm just not sure how much to expect of Tom in terms of how much growth he's going to show this year. I'm pretty sure he will, but I personally think Pitto is our most important ruckman at this stage until Tom overtakes him. And we saw last season what happened once Pitto went down. Obviously Tom got some really good reps in the game time that he was playing last year and got to really, I don't know if it was fast track his development, but it really helped with his development. I thought that was great, but ultimately we really did feel the pinch of Pitto. And I don't know, this is very anecdotal, but I just feel like at this stage in their careers, I think Pitto, when he plays, he just gives us so much more of a presence around the ball, around stoppages. He uses his body very well. He does a lot that doesn't get noticed enough around the ball. There aren't stats for what he provides. He's a pretty good hit-outs ruckman. He's a pretty good hit-outs to advantage ruckman. He also suffered from, he was injured with the PCL, came back and was just nowhere near able to move the way he did at the start of the season. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that we started the season so well last year. And Pitto was obviously at his best as well before going down. So I think knowing that there's really 2 ruckmen that are bona fide in their role, and I would even argue that I'm not sure if Tom is fully there just yet. He's still got some steps to go. Whether that is this year where Tom De Koning really takes that giant quantum leap, or if it's next year, I feel like it's coming soon. But at this stage, I think Pitto is our second most important player heading into the year because, touch wood, the idea of losing one of these most important players is felt more than others. So Pitto's the next one. The third one for me is Patrick Cripps. I think this is probably more evident because we know that Sam Walsh will be missing. Cripps has a lot of help now in the midfield, generally speaking, whether it's, George Hewitt, Matt Kennedy stepped up, Chera's there. Walsh is obviously a really high impact player and a high caliber of player. But I think, when we're at our best, the skipper's doing his thing. We obviously still have a losing record with him playing well, so I have taken that into account, but we're going to need the skipper to be fit and firing and at his absolute best in the absence of Sam Walsh, who really takes the load off him. And also with George Hewitt, at this stage, I just don't know where George Hewitt is with that back. We'll hopefully get some more information about that as the preseason continues. But yeah, a fit and firing Patrick Cripps, generally speaking, means a fit and firing Carlton, especially under this new regime. So Cripps is my third. My fourth is, it's hard to split them, but Harry or Charlie, who's more valuable? I'm not really sure, if I'm honest with you. I'm really not sure. I think your key position players are, generally speaking, the ones that are harder to replace. I think Charlie I would put at 4. Yeah, I think I'd put Charlie at 4. I'm trying to think what would happen if we were in a side where we only had Charlie or we only had Harry. I would guess that a fit and firing Charlie Curnow would give us more from a goals standpoint than a fit and firing Harry Mackay. Could be wrong. I don't know. Harry does a few other things as well that are very handy. They're both great players. We obviously invest heavily in both of them. They are really the pillars of our forward line, and two of the 5 or 6 or 7 key pillars of this entire group, given how much we invest in them. But I think Charlie is our next most important player. He's able to do things in the air. He's able to do things on the ground, which is where I think he gets the nod at this stage of his career over Harry. Harry's a bit more consistent with his marking, I think. I also think Harry's really dangerous when he's moving up the ground and marking the ball up the ground, which gives him another avenue of just something to make the opposition struggle with. But yeah, Charlie's a special talent, and I think having the experience that he has had now, being out of the game for so long, not taking it for granted, coming back and then playing with a real spirit that he did, and obviously winning the Coleman medal, I actually still think there's levels for Charlie Curnow to go to, and I think that's probably something that gets forgotten. Like, he's still quite young, he's missed a lot of football, and the more continuity he gets and consistency he gets in his training and in his games, the more we're going to see of him. So I think Charlie's there, and I wouldn't be surprised if we did this in 12 months and Charlie was at the top of the list. So it's a watch this space. My 5th most important player, I tossed up between George Hewitt and Adam Saad. Now, Adam Saad is an interesting one. Saadi, for some reason, can you possibly be an All-Australian player and still be underrated? I don't know. I feel like Saad would fit the bill. He oftentimes gets overlooked. I feel like the great ones, the great players, make things look boring. And they make things look regular, and they're not flashy. They just are consistent time after time. And I think Saad, to be honest, and George Hewitt fit in this category. They do the basics so well. And I think there have been 2 acquisitions for the club that have just been sensational, consistent, professional, on the field, off the field. There's never a worry about an issue with Saadi or George Hewitt off the field. They've got their heads screwed on in different ways, but also not too dissimilarly. And I just think, I've moved away from loving the flashy guys who are super athletic and, accumulate the most stats. And I've learned to really love the job doers, the ones that are just consistent week in, week out, get the job done, not even looking for praise, and oftentimes get overlooked. And I think George Hewitt and Adam Saad are exactly that for us. Hewitt, we really missed him. We really, really missed him when he left the team last year due to injury. And I think he showed a lot of just in the sense of making the right play. He just seems to make the right play every time, doesn't try to overstretch his capabilities. He's really clear within his role. He's a really hard, disciplined, tough, fierce competitor. Saadi, no different. Obviously was fortunate enough to win his All-Australian nod in 2022. Maybe not fortunate, because it was well deserved, very well deserved. So I think the knock on him last year was about his defensive action, but I just think that was just some salty Essendon supporters who wanted to throw some shade once he left their club. But I think he's a great defender. He's honest. and makes the right play. He does really good for the club. I think he'd be a great, there's that notion of the locker room guy, and I think Sardi would be a great locker room guy, good for culture. So I'm going to say, I'll probably say George Hewitt, maybe a 5A, George Hewitt, 5B, Adam Sard. Those are my 5. But what about you? Who do you believe are our most important players? Maybe you should list your top 5 in order of most important. Let me know in the comments below, and we'll chat about it then. Go Blues.